We should be good to go.
Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Wooster City Council held by Zoom video conferencing and YouTube this Monday, April 5, 2021. It is after 7:30 p.m. The next meeting will be held Monday, April 19th, 2021 at 7:30 p.m. Mr. Paulo, as clerk of council, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Ansel,
Here.
Mr. Bostancic,
Here.
Mr. Cavan,
Here.
Mr. Myers,
Here.
Mr. Sanders,
Here.
Mr. Silvestri,
Here.
and Ms. Warden.
Here.
Good to see everyone. We do have a complete council present, so we have a quorum. The agenda will remain as presented. There will be an executive session at the end of the regular legislative portion of council. At this time, I would ask you to stand and join the members of the City Council in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Item 2 of the agenda is the approval of minutes of March 15th, 2021. I would entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Ansel to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by, was that Mr. Sanders?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please say nay. The minutes of March 15th, 2021 are approved. Welcome, Mayor. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good Easter. It was a beautiful day. Couldn't ask for a nicer one.
Absolutely. You bet. Thank you, President Bytendijk and council members. Nice to see everyone this evening. So really, I think you will like this whole agenda tonight. I think we've got lots of good things happening in our city and some fun things to be able to act upon here this evening. So I'll just start out with my mayor's report. Really, I try to sort of summarize what our administrative team's been working on since the last council meeting, just to keep you in the loop. We met with Bill Lemon from Lemon Development on March 17th to talk about how a planned development works. He's been in the development business for a while and had not done a planned development. So we worked with him, and actually it was a very positive conversation about housing for Wooster. So it was a nice meeting. We were invited to Gojo's facility on March 19th to see the latest improvements. It's amazing how they've transformed their facility out there. We are proud to have them in our city, and they are quickly becoming one of our largest employers. Wooster is the largest maker of Purell in the world. We were invited to tour Minglewood Distillery on March 22nd. They have amazing improvements to the old Ice House building by Mark and Andrew Morrison. It is becoming one of the anchors for our entertainment district on East Liberty Street. We attended a Board of Education meeting in support of Wooster Brush's expansion plans on the 5L farm. The Board of Education was in support of the Brush's 75% CRA request, and that is in front of you this evening. We welcomed and spent the day with a group doing a site visit for our city. It was a very busy day, but it appears positive at this point. The group was looking for a manufacturing site in a multi-state area. So no further information at this point, but we had a good meeting. We had Worcester Community Hospital finance and board meetings and Worcester growth meetings since our last time together. We met with a local business interested in interested in an open manufacturing space in our city and thinking about possibly moving their business into that. We got to celebrate Dave Mosier's career with the city of Worcester. He celebrated 30 years and a retirement on March 31st. He was in our utilities sector and really was a plant manager down at the water plant. Dave was a good guy and served our city well for 30 years. I attended the Planning Commission's meeting regarding manufacturing building expansion, a development plan for a site in Wooster Innovation Park, and 2 zoning changes, Lemon and the City 5L property. And unfortunately, I must end on a sad note. We lost 2 of our retired team members from the city. Al Maurer worked in our utilities and maintenance division. He passed on March 26th. He had served 22 years with our city and retired at that point. And he was a good guy, and a lot of people knew Al and his personality with our city. And then Val Jesnick passed on March 27th. Val was our planning and zoning manager. She served 30 years in that position for our city, and she was quite the lady. Val was always kind to people and always was a person that you could know would work to solve problems, and she did all the time. So our condolences to Val's family on her untimely passing. So with that, as I said, I think we've got a good agenda for you this evening, and we look forward to helping work through it as the evening goes on. I'll pass it back to you, President Biden-Dyke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do not have any committee reports. Any communications from the public there, Mr. Scovelli?
John, you're muted.
So we have questions from a user named MSS Fan, all about Let's Chat. I think I can handle a lot of these, but I will let you know what he's saying. So he's asking if there are any reports or emails that are circulated to council regarding these sessions. Where are these reports or emails publicly posted? And does the news media count as one of the 2 people allowed? I initially responded to him that, because I thought he was talking about council because he didn't bring up the Let's Chat yet, that our agendas are posted to the website. He says he had several questions for the mayor and for President Biden-Dyke regarding the Let's Chats. And then he says, when can I ask a question following council discussion before the ordinance is enacted? So I think I can handle most of his questions, and I can type back to him. I don't know if anyone wants to address that. I do know that Mr. Biden-Dyke has been keeping notes of the Let's Chat sessions, and those would be considered a public record for the information of MSS Fan. So if you would be interested in seeing those, I do not know if those have been posted on the website. I don't think there's any plans for that to be the case. And MSS Fan, I would just tell you that you are more than welcome to ask any questions regarding ordinances. He is asking what is the, he says, what is the necessity for immediate action on proposed ordinance 2021-16?
Hey, John,
Yes.
you know, as in anyone who would appear before council, we always ask for them to identify themselves and what their address is.
I can ask him. We can say, MSS Fan, if you would please say your name and your address.
Because, you know, we've had at times people who live outside of the city, you know, try to sneak in and ask questions at council meeting. And that's one of the filters that we use is that, you know, that they do have to either have a, you know, vested interest in the legislation, such as being a business person that might not live in the city, or that they are a resident of the city of Worcester.
Well, I will type back to him, and then if you want to come back after a moment, we can do that.
Sure.
President Dyke, Scott
Yes.
Myers, the ordinance in question, resolution, ordinance 2021-16 that I'm sponsoring this evening. It is slated for 3 readings. Depending upon how public hearing and council's input goes, it may go to 3rd and final, or it may remain on 1st reading to 2nd for the future meetings. So it is not an urgent necessity that it passes tonight. So we'll wait and see how the input from fellow councilmen goes this evening before we make that decision.
Okay, so President Dyke, MSS fan is Rick Helmuth, who is an attorney who has been representing the Racial Justice Coalition, or at least
Well,
associated with
I
that.
know Mr. Helmuth, and
He is a
he has-
resident of Orville.
the last I checked, he was not a citizen or not a resident of the city of Worcester.
He is a resident of Orville, he said.
Yes. So nice try, Mr. Helmuth. All right. With that said, we do have 3 public hearings, and I think they're all going to be held by Mr. Sanders. And I assume Mr. Sanders will just open one and then close it, then open one, close it, right down the line. So at this point in time, I will turn the floor over to you, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first public hearing we have this evening is the rezoning on the 5L farm. We had actually gone through this 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, though, after the public hearing, it was determined that there was an address that was incorrect to one of the adjacent property owners, and we needed to get that corrected. So with that clarification, I will open the public hearing up and would be interested in hearing from those that wish to support the rezoning on the 5L farm.
I'd be happy to speak in favor of the rezoning for the 5L farm. This is Bob Bredeman, City of Worcester. And really, this matches the best zoning definition for what is planned for that piece of property, which is an extension of our industrial park in the Old Airport Road, Daisy Way area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And to clarify too, then the rezone or the zoning request is to go to I2, which will be general industrial.
Yes, thank you for that.
Is there anyone that wishes to speak against the rezoning of the 5L farm property? All right, well, we've held our public hearing for the 5L farm rezoning. We'll close the public hearing related to that now. Thank you all. We'll move on to the public hearing for the West Henry Street rezoning. This is a continuation, not really a continuation. This is a modification of a request that we saw last year. Again, taking property and looking at going to I2 zoning for just general clarification and better utilization of the property. It is on West Henry Street, and it is the requested area is currently would be to the south of what used to be the old Curry Lumber Building. So with that, I will open up the floor to anyone that wishes to speak for the rezoning request.
Yes, this is Mike Bogner, representing Bogner Construction Company, 305 West Mulberry Street in town here. I'll be very brief. Basically, we're just requesting to shrink this RT zoning. Right now, it's surrounded on 3 sides by I-2. We're just requesting a small portion of that be changed to I-2. There still will be residential surrounded on 3 sides by I-2. Our initial plan is there is a house that is run down, and our plan is to demolish it and return it to green space. Hopefully this will increase property values. It'll make the property more marketable to be developed in the future. Should be noted, we also did allow the last couple of months the police department and fire department to use it for training, and they've continued to do that. And the fire department did just ask us for a burn permit, and we gave them permission to pursue that so that they can actually burn to the ground. The house, if you look at the pictures, is by itself. It's kind of out there, nowhere near any other houses. So we'll let them do that, and hopefully we can get the zoning changed and go from there. So that's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak for the rezoning of the West Henry Street properties? Is there anyone that wishes to speak against the rezoning of these 5 properties?
I would. Mark Cavan, Ward 1. I think it's just far too close to downtown to have, as it said, the further creep of industrial even closer to the square. If anything, I'd like to see the other part eventually go to R1 or RT as well. So I would be diabolically opposed. I don't think that that's a good location to put industrial anything. And I mean, you can buy a block of houses and tear them all down. You can do that at any street in Worcester. Doesn't mean you should be able to turn it into industrial use. You know, it's just not a good plan. I think it's too close to the square. It's too close to Liberty Street. Doesn't belong in the downtown near the fair or near downtown.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak against the rezoning of the West Henry properties? All right, well, we will close this public hearing and we will open up our 3rd public hearing related to the Old Airport Road rezoning. What we have here is roughly a 20-acre parcel, 20.3 acres on the east side of Old Airport Road that is currently I-1, and the applicant is asked to rezone to I-2. For council members, as you've looked at the legislation, and it basically falls right within the area that we have I-2 now. To the north of the north would be the new 5L farm, to the east would be Daisy, to the south would be Scheffler. So it makes sense within the confines of what we have currently planned within our city planning. So with that, I will open up the floor to anyone that wishes to speak for the Old Airport Road rezoning.
Once again, Mike Bugner here with 2B. I'm here to speak for it. Basically, we're requesting everything on the east side is already I-2. So we're simply requesting to be consistent. This property, once again, is surrounded on 3 sides by I-2, and right now it's I-1. So we would request that we just be consistent. And we have had some interest from more than one people that are interested in developing that property. However, it would be contingent on changing it to I-2 to match the surrounding areas. So that's why we are requesting it today.
Okay.
Mr. Sanders,
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Ansel.
as a business owner on Old Airport Road, I'm very familiar with the parcel, and it really does make a lot of sense to increase the flexibility for future land use of that parcel and development. It abuts one of our properties, and we certainly support this initiative to provide smaller footprinted businesses to relocate there at some future date. So I go on record with that support.
Thank you, Mr. Ansel. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak for the rezoning? Is there anyone that wishes to speak against the rezoning of the parcel on Old Airport Road? All right, with that, we will close this public hearing related to the rezoning of the Old Airport Road property, and we'll turn this back over to you, Mr. Beitendijk.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. I hope you're feeling well. You sound a little froggy, so hopefully it's allergies or a cold and not something more serious. Hopefully you still have your taste and smell.
Well, I must admit I do, but I did get my first COVID shot on Thursday, and I was fine Thursday, I was fine Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and today I have been a little under the weather.
Well, I hear some of those have kind of a late effect, that it's a couple of days down the road before you feel the effects. So hopefully that's the worst to come, and tomorrow you'll feel a lot better. So,
Mr. Sanders, I will note, I do like the WKRP look tonight. That headset is sounding very well, very good.
Well, candidly, we've got guys working in the hallway, painting the hallway right now, which is right on the backside of my office. So I had to do something so that the sound wasn't transferring through the meeting. So Mr. Scavelli and I did a test run prior to 5 o'clock. And yeah, it looks a little hokey, but at this point it works. So
No, I think
we'll
it
roll
looks
with it.
good. I'm going to go out and get me
don't have to
one.
call you Johnny Fever, though.
Yeah, Les Wexman,
Hey,
right?
it's Dr. Johnny Fever.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right, Dr. Johnny Fever. Okay. Moving right along, we have one item of unfinished business, and it will be presented by Mr. Sanders, slated for second reading. If you would, Mr. Paulo, please read the title.
Ordinance number 2021-13. An ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the city of Wooster, Ohio, so as to amend the zoning map at a certain parcel on North Gyers Chapel Road and Daisy Way.
Thank you. Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. Before we get too deep into this, I do have a clarification, or we need to make an amendment to this legislation. If we go down and look at section 1, about halfway down the main page, it says I2, and then in parentheses it says single family residential. We need to change that to general industrial.
All right, that looks to be a clerical error. I think if we so note that there was a clerical error, that we can correct that. I think there are provisions under the revised code for clerical errors, because the I2 is absolutely correct. So
Yes.
you'll be-
Okay.
you'll be-
All right. Well, very good. I'll continue then. As we started this 2 weeks ago, we were looking at the rezoning of the 135-ish acres on the rest of Daisy Way and also North Gyers Chapel Road, from R1 to I2, as it was brought into the city through zoning, or brought in through the when the property was brought into the city, it was considered R1. So at this point, the request is to make this I2, which again would be a much more appropriate use of it in light of its location. And again, the real reason why we're going through this a second time is the fact that we had some information that was inaccurate, and we needed to clarify that related to an address on adjacent property owners, which has been corrected. So with that, I will motion to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Before I do that, I wanted to ask Mr. Dutton. I see he's on the line here. I'm assuming that this rezoning criteria falls within sections 1105.03 subsection E of our codified ordinances.
Correct. The 110503E1 of the ordinances contains a review criteria for the zoning amendment. It's been provided to City Council in your packets. Based on these review criteria, on April 1st, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval. In addition, Planning Division staff also recommends approval, and we found that the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and provides an opportunity for target industrial development. There have been changing conditions in the area with recent adjacent industrial development and the pending connection of Daisy Way to Old Airport Road. And the proposed zoning is compatible with the surrounding area, which is predominantly farmland, industrial property, and undeveloped land, and will not result in adverse effects.
Thank you, Mr. Dutton. With that, then I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-13 on third and final reading, and including after consideration pursuant to the criteria contained in section 1105.03 subsection E of the Worcester codified ordinances.
Okay, motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second, Mr. Myers.
I saw David's hand and voice, and just before I heard yours, Mr. Myers, so
Aye.
considered that Mr. Silvestri has seconded it. Mr. Paula, would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules, please?
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Bostancic.
Yes.
Rules have been suspended. I look to you again, Mr. Sanders.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second, Myers.
Second by Mr. Myers. Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on, well, I'm sorry, if any further discussion, I apologize. I jumped the gun. Although we've discussed this last week and I've discussed it before, so. All right, seeing none, Mr. Paulo, now would you mind calling the roll on the motion to adopt?
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
and Bostancic.
Yes.
Ordinance number 2021-13 passes. We now move to the new business. First item on that is ordinance number 2021-14. It'll be presented by Mr. Sanders. That's slated for 3 readings. Before I turn it back over to you, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Paulo, would you please read the title?
Ordinance number 2021-14. An ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the city of Worcester, Ohio, so as to amend the zoning map at certain parcels on West Henry Street.
Mr. Sanders, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Buitendijk. Yeah, as we discussed briefly in the public hearing, we have 8 smaller parcels of property, approximately 1.3 acres, 1.113 acres, that sits, like I said, on the west side of, or on the west end of, or on West Henry Street on the south face of the property. To the north of it is the old Curry Lumber Facility, which is zoned I2. To the west of it, we have I2 zoning, which is also is actually part of the, well, I don't think the grain mill's quite there, but there's some other properties before you get to the railroad tracks. And then to the south of it is the Bogner's Construction Office, which is currently I2. At this point, again, this is a modified request from what was originally asked the first time, which was going not quite all the way up to the corner, but going much further to the east. And at this point, they've basically taken the request and cut it in half. And so I guess at this point, I would want to clarify before we get too deep into this with Mr. Dutton. Again, the same question as the other ones related to section 1105.03 subsection E of the Worcester Codified Ordinances. If you could speak to that, I would appreciate it, sir.
Yes, once again, section 1105.03E1 of the ordinances applies, and City Council has a copy of those review criteria. Based on the criteria on March 4th, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval. Again, staff also recommends approval and finds that the zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It provides an opportunity for targeted industrial redevelopment. There have been changing conditions in the area due to the demolition of residential structures, resulting in a site suitable for industrial development. And the proposed zoning is largely compatible with the surrounding area, is over 200 feet from the nearest occupied residential property, and will not result in adverse effects.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, I would like to motion to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-14 on third and final reading after consideration pursuant to the criteria contained in section 1105.03 subsection E of the Worcester Codified Ordinances.
Mr. Sanders has moved to suspend the rules. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ansel. If you would, Mr. Paulo, please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules.
Cavan,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Bostancic,
Yes.
and Ansel.
Yes.
Okay, the rules have been suspended by vote of council. Mr. Sanders, do you have another motion for us?
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Ansel. Is there a second?
Second, Myers.
Second by Mr. Myers. Any additional discussion? This was one of the properties we had a public hearing on, so it's opportunity for council to weigh in, or those that haven't or have a second bite at the apple.
I would say that again, I would reiterate, it's too close to the square. Not saying that, but Bogner has been a great company inside the city of Worcester, a good friend of Worcester, but they don't keep that. If they don't keep that property, someone else ends up with it. You don't know what is going into that zone, and it's right, two blocks from the square, 1 block from the library. So you have the Red Cross within earshot of all that. And at one time, just over the hill a few years ago, they're not there now, but we had that pipe business that was moving pipes at night with large equipment that you could hear all over downtown. So I just don't want to wade back into something like that. Again, all the respect in the world to Bogner Corporation, but it's too close to town. It just is. That something like that, industrial type businesses need to be outside, farther than they are away from RT zoning. Thank you.
Mr. Silvestri?
Yes, I just want to dovetail on Mr. Cavan's comments. I think at first glance, it's easy to look at this proposal and to think that, it's flanked on 3 sides by, businesses currently, and it's zoned accordingly. But I think it brings up a good point. Once we eliminate all or a portion of this strip in the middle, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I think it just opens up the door for, possibly, as Mr. Cavan mentioned, a more, intense use of the business district there. And it is close to our downtown. So I guess Mr. Cavan brings up some good points. And like I said, on paper, maybe it looks like, this just makes sense, but once you start closing that gap, who knows what that could become, and it would become a pretty large footprint pretty quickly. So thank you.
Mr. Sanders, Scott Myers. I certainly think that the goal of having that be developed as housing is admirable. However, we're not the property owners. The property owners requesting a change that meets the guidelines of the city and is being recommended by our Planning and Zoning Commission and by Andrew Dutton's staff. Again, out of respect for the property owner, that they meet the criteria. And as Mr. Cavan stated, the Bogner business and family have been very supportive of Wooster. I trust they'll make the right decision. They plan on keeping the property. They've had it for some time, allowing them to do something with it. It's currently vacant. Having any development would be better than vacant. I think that they'll do the right thing with the property. Again, if our choice, maybe housing would be a better fit. It might not be economically feasible right now to build housing on those parcels. Cost of construction for housing right now is pretty high, and it just might not make a lot of sense to try to build single family homes in that area at this time. So I plan to support it. They did move it further away from downtown with their request. So they've given a buffer that will remain residential. So I think that they're trying to work with us and cooperate with us. And what Mr. Cavan and Mr. Silvestri pointed out as concerns, they've gone part way and made an accommodation to help support that. So I plan to support it. Thank you.
I'll reiterate this.
I would make one last point as to Mr. Myers. There is no better place to build a house in Worcester than an RT. With the things that we set up with tax forgiveness and things like that nature, that there isn't a better place to build. So there you go.
Mr. Ansel, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate Councilman Myers' feedback, and the Planning Commission's recommendation carries a lot of weight in the decision-making process and a unanimous vote. And furthermore, the being good stewards within our community, Bogner Construction and the Bogner family, they'll be cognizant of appropriate use of that, and whether it be a light industrial or an office type of complex. It's certainly, there are other light industrial businesses adjacent to our downtown, including the Minglewood Distillery that the mayor had talked about as a keynote option. And unfortunately, this property for new home construction based on the connection and the abutment to other industrial parcels makes it a little less attractive for costly new home builds in that corridor. So if it wasn't such a well-respected organization long-term, a community civic minded organization, I trust them to be good stewards of the future use of that property. And currently, I'm not aware of any plans during the Planning Commission discussion. There aren't any hidden agendas or plans now looming for the use of that property. It's kind of an island now with a couple structures on it that will continue to spur positive future growth in the downtown. If not, they're going to have to look the residents in Worcester in the face if it's exploited or used in an inappropriate fashion for the downtown. So that being noted, I'm going to support this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Ansel. Is there anyone else that wishes to have any comments on this?
Craig?
Well, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I originally voted against the zoning change originally, but I think Bogners have made pretty reasonable accommodations. in its place now, and they're not really abutting a lot of any residential areas right now, as it was going to be really close on with the last plan. But I think they've made reasonable accommodations, and I think it'll be a I would like to see more residential downtown, and I've been a big advocate of that in discussions with some of the people down at City Hall. But it's also been pointed out, it's not a great spot for a home if you're going to be around butting on three sides with industrial buildings, and wouldn't be my first place pick to put a single family home. So I plan on supporting this resolution.
Well, I think Mr. Myers made a good point. I mean, we have to also approach it, with common sense and what everyone has said in favor of it. It just doesn't make common sense when certain environments change that you're going to think that people are going, despite whether they might get some tax relief, go spend $150,000, $200,000 to build a single family residential in an area that really is more some sort of business or industrial. It just doesn't make sense. And, and obviously we love Wooster Brush. Wooster Brush isn't that far off of the square either. So, I mean, I understand some of the points being made, but it flies in the face to me of common sense that we're going to hold property hostage to maybe be developed for residential when, the planning commission and the people looking at it on behalf of the city say this is probably the best use for this property.
Mr. Cavan, out of respect, I certainly value your opinion and your input. I mean, on the other side of that, if we move the industrial too far from the square, they'll be outside the city limits and in the county, that we won't reap any benefits. So.
Oh, we'll find somewhere to put them, Scott. I'm sure of that.
Mark, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We'll buy something for them. We'll fix it.
I know.
Well, seeing nothing further, if you would please, Mr. Paulo, call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Cavan,
No way.
Warden,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
No.
Bostancic,
Yes.
and Ansel.
Yes.
Well, my meager public school math skills say it's 5-2, so the ordinance number 2021-14 passes.
Thanks for coming tonight, Mike.
Or ordinance number 2021-15, I'm sorry. Or no.
No, we're gonna do 2021-15.
Okay, it is 2021-14. I can't read my notes and look at the screen at the same time. So, all right. So 2021, ordinance number 2021-14 passes. So moving along now to ordinance number 2021-15. Once again, he'll be presented by Mr. Sanders. For someone who's a little froggy today, unfortunately, we're making you one of our workhorses. So I guess that's the penalty of being popular this evening. So before I get to you, Mr. Sanders, I'll ask Mr. Paulo to please read the title of this ordinance.
Ordinance number 2021-15, an ordinance amending Part 11 zoning of the codified ordinances of the city of Wooster, Ohio, so as to amend the zoning map at a certain parcel on Old Airport Road.
All right, Mr. Sanders, tune up those pipes once more, and we'll turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Buitendijk. Yes, what we have is again, as we had discussed in the public hearing, we have a request to rezone 20.3 acres on the east side of Old Airport Road. Currently is I-1. They would like to ask to rezone it to I-2. As we had previously discussed, it's consistent with the adjacent properties and the potential or the new 5L farm to the north. And at this point, it's like I say, it's been approved by Planning Commission. And again, I will ask the question of Mr. Dutton. The proposed changes are consistent with our section 110503 subsection E of the Worcester codified ordinances.
Yes, again, we're reviewing these by 1105.03E1, which have also again been provided to City Council. And once again, based on these review criteria, on March 4th, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend approval. In addition, planning staff also recommends approval and finds that the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive plan and provides an opportunity for targeted industrial development for a site benefiting from public and private investment in the surrounding area. There have been changing conditions in the area with recent adjacent industrial development and the pending connection of Daisy Way to Old Airport Road. And the proposed zoning is largely compatible with the area and is surrounded by industrial properties.
Thank you, Mr. Dutton. With that, I would motion to suspend the rules of council and place ordinance 2021-15 on third and final reading after consideration and pursuant to the criteria contained in section 1105.03 subsection E of the Worcester codified ordinances.
You
So
might want
moved.
to add that latter part than when we do a motion to adopt. But at the moment before us is a motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Sanders, and Mr. Ansel is gesturing that he's seconding it. So, Mr. Paulo, if you would please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules.
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
and Cavan.
Yes.
All right, the rules are suspended. Mr. Sanders, I turn to you again.
I would motion to adopt ordinance 2021-15 after consideration pursuant to the criteria contained in section 1105.03 subsection E of the Worcester codified ordinances.
Very good. Mr. Sanders has made a motion to adopt.
Second.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Myers. Any further discussion about this? We've talked about this property for a number of months there. So last chance to ask questions, and seeing none, then Mr. DiPaolo, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan.
Yes.
See if I can get it right this time. Ordinance number 2021-15 passes. That brings us to ordinance number 2021-16. It is slated for 3 readings. It is presented by Mr. Myers. Before I get to you, Mr. Myers, who I can't tell is either fishing or getting away tee off there on the Masters, but I'll get to you in a minute after I have Mr. Paulo, if she would please read the title.
Ordinance number 2021-16. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with the Worcester Brush Company for community reinvestment area tax incentives and allowing for immediate enactment.
Mr. President, I must recuse myself from this piece of legislation this evening.
All right, well, it will be noted that Mr. Ansel is recusing himself from ordinance number 2021-16. So with that, Mr. Myers, I turn the floor over to you, sir.
Thank you, President Dyke. This is probably one of my favorite CRA applications. The Wooster Brush Company has just been an outstanding member of this community. I just know a lot of people that have worked and supported that organization over the years. They have been just a loyal community member, and I look forward to supporting this. I'm going to let Jonathan, I know he's prepped and ready with the numbers. I'm going to ask him to give a brief overview. I don't think there's going to be any real questions about this. There's extensive materials in everybody's packet. Hopefully they've all been able to take a look at that. I know I have. The 25 new jobs, providing them some flexibility with growth and moving some of their facilities and equipment out to this site just makes all the sense in the world. We wish them the continued success that they've had. And Jonathan, if you would just want to review the numbers and give us the high point, and I appreciate it. And unless there's any objection this evening from fellow council members, I will ask to move it to third and final. But let's hear the overview and listen to what council members have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. So this evening, before us is a request for, if this were to come to fruition, it would be our largest CRA project on record, and also the third largest building footprint project in our city limits. And this, of course, is previously introduced, being provided by none other than our longest serving business in town, the Wooster Brush Company. The company is wanting to continue its operations here in the city of Worcester, even though their operations have now taken them beyond the state of Ohio, beyond the United States, and now serving a global marketplace. This company is committed to making its expansion happen in its namesake city, which we're very grateful for. There are a lot of hurdles that the company is working to overcome in order to make this happen. Workforce is a significant issue in the city of Worcester, or I should say workforce constraints in particular. And additionally, the need for space to construct a building of this size, 400,000 to 600,000 square feet, which again, by any measure would be our third largest building in the city. Requires a lot of resources, especially coming at a time when the firm is also wanting to focus its revenue and resources on its employment. Today, the Wooster Brush Company employs 628 people in the city of Worcester in 2 facilities. These 2 facilities right now are constrained and have significant I would say significant constraints with being able to operate efficiently. So this newly proposed facility will help alleviate some of the strain in those facilities, allowing the firm to have to optimize its operations, not only in this new facility, but optimize operations at its existing other 2 Worcester facilities, which are also in the same community reinvestment area. In addition to the 25 jobs that the company is committing to, with aspirations of hiring double that in the same period of time, this will also provide support. This will also have 50 existing employees who are in the overly constrained areas of the 2 existing facilities. The abatement request is very much commensurate with the significant level of investment that the company is undertaking. The investment will require approximately $13 to $19 million in order to execute this structure. And also, I'd like to just make a quick introduction to Mr. Tim Swift and also Mr. David Spar, who, as you read through the application materials, provided a letter just sharing in their own words their aspirations for this incredibly significant project, and also a project that'll lead the way for the expansion of Worcester's largest employment center. So with that being said, Councilman Myers, I digress, but happy to answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Millay. Would the gentleman from Wooster Brush like to speak on behalf of this evening? You're not required to, but you've been sitting patiently, so we certainly want to give you the opportunity.
Well, just in advance, we want to thank City Council and everyone for giving this due consideration. What you're witnessing here is a little bit historic. And as you said, we're the oldest employer in Wayne County. Thank you to the city of Worcester for making that possible. I think the energetic part of this is the fact that what you're going to see happen is we have about 750,000 square foot total today. And in the length of time it takes to build a building, we're going to almost double that. So you get 170 years worth of growth here in about 2 years. So thank you for giving us consideration. We're excited about it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for being here this evening to support your initiative. I have nothing further, and if nobody has any objections, I'd like to motion to move this to third and final reading this evening.
I'll take that as a motion to suspend the rules by Mr. Myers. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the suspension of the rules?
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
and Bostancic.
The rules are suspended. Mr. Myers, do you have another motion for us?
Yes, President Biden, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance
Okay.
number 2021-16.
Mr. Myers is moving to approve ordinance number 2021-16. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Any further discussion? Seeing none? If you would please, Mr. Paulo, please call the roll on the motion to adopt.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
and Bostancic.
Yes.
All right, ordinance number 2021-16 passes. It'll be nice to keep Worcester brush within the city of Worcester. Now, Dr. Tefts has said now if he only could get you to change your color scheme to blue. So.
Good luck.
I,
Thank you for, yes, thank you. Thank you for the continued partnership.
all right, well, thank you for being a major part of Worcester and being here from almost the start, well before any of our time. So good luck to you on the project.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's look at resolution number 2021-19. It'll be presented by Ms. Warden. Before I get to you, Ms. Warden, I'll look to Mr. Paulo to please read the title.
Resolution number 2021-19. A resolution authorizing the Director of Administration to enter into a contract to participate in the ODOT Cooperative Purchasing Program and allowing for immediate enactment.
Ms. Warden, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Biden. So this resolution authorizes the city to participate in the Ohio Department of Transportation's Cooperative Purchasing Program in order to replenish the city's road salt supply for next winter. Not something we really want to think about right now, but it's important that we're prepared. The city's Public Properties Maintenance Division anticipates purchasing approximately 4,000 tons of salt in 2022 in order to maintain sufficient reserves. Funding for this purchase will be requested in next year's budget, so in 2022. And the reason for such an early request is that the city was recently notified that it was eligible to participate in ODOT's winter fill salt contract. So that necessitated the passage of the resolution this evening. This past winter, our snow and ice control spread about 4,200 tons of salt. And that amount is about 500 tons less than the city's annual average. We currently have 3,900 tons of salt in reserves. And then for anyone watching that would like to know why we participate in this cooperative program, it's because the salt market is pretty unpredictable. And so it's hard for city managers to predict and budget for our salt use year after year. This sort of just ensures that we're going to have a basically stakes in a competitive price as long as we sign a contract with ODOT, gives us an opportunity to stabilize our pricing. So in order to avoid having to purchase our road salt on the open market for what I assume will be much higher prices, I move to suspend the rules and place this on third and final reading this evening. If anyone has any questions, by the way, Mr. Denning has graciously joined us this evening.
All right, motion to suspend the rules by Mrs. Warden. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Ms. DiPaolo, would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bostancic,
Yes.
and Myers.
Yes.
The rules have been suspended. I look to you, Ms. Warden, for another motion.
I move to adopt.
Okay. Motion to adopt by Ms. Warden. Is there a second?
Second. I'll second.
Heard Mr. Silvestri first, and I should say, you know, salt seems somewhat remote except for Mother Nature's April Fool's joke on us April 1st. So, you know, it's still out, lurking out there, and I'm sure Mr. Denning's well aware of the vagaries of the month of April here in northeastern Ohio. Anyone else worth their salt want to weigh in here? Seeing none, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Sanders,
Yes.
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bostancic,
Yes.
and Myers.
Yes.
Okay, resolution number 2021-19 passes. And
Thank you,
now
guys.
we turn to our
Good night, Kurt.
ordinance, our ordinance number 2021-17, which will also be presented by Ms. Warden. But Ms. DiPaolo, for one last time, I believe, would you please read the title of this piece of legislation?
Ordinance number 2021-17, an ordinance authorizing the sale of property to the Wooster Growth Corporation and allowing for immediate enactment.
Ms. Warren, the floor is yours.
Thank you. This ordinance seeks to transfer ownership of the 5L Farm property, which is slated to become an industrial park, to Wooster Growth Corporation for a price of $10. The transfer of ownership will allow for Wooster Growth to negotiate transactions with interested buyers a lot more expediently than having to go through a channel with a municipality. There are two purchase opportunities that are currently in the works, and the administration is confident that the majority of the property could be sold in the very near future. Similar transfers of ownership between the city and Wooster Growth have proven successful in the past. In 2000, the city transferred its Byzantium Farm property to Wooster Growth. And then in 2013, a property located on Long Road was also transferred to Wooster Growth. The Byzantium Farm, as you all know, resulted in the development of 7 industrial facilities and almost 200 jobs, thus increasing the tax revenue. Property on Long Road was sold, and the proceeds from that sale were returned to the city and then used to help offset the cost of purchasing the 5L farms. In the Ohio Revised Code, Title 17, Section 1724.10, there is protection of municipalities' assets in these particular situations by defining community investment corporations such as Wooster Growth as an agent of the city and stating that any profit from the sale of the land must be given back to the city, less any costs incurred by Wooster Growth. Further, Ohio law requires that at least 2/5 of the membership of Wooster Growth Board be composed of city officials, thus ensuring transparency and making sure that the city's interests are upheld. As evidenced by previous items on tonight's agenda, I believe time is of the essence in this matter, and so I move to place this ordinance on third and final reading.
Motion by Ms. Warden to suspend the rules and move this to third and final reading. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Ansel. Mr. Paula, would you please call the roll on the motion to suspend the rules?
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
and Sanders.
Yes.
Okay, the motion to suspend the rules passes. Ms. Warren, I turn to you again for yet another motion.
Thank you. I move to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Warden. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Bostancic. And I should just point out that the Worcester growth is a creature that was developed and passed by Worcester ordinance. And the chairperson, Margot Braille, is always the first to point out that Worcester growth serves on behalf of Worcester City Council. So don't everyone get scared about the transfer for $10. That there just has to be some sort of consideration. So any monies that Worcester growth earns will be turned back to the city. Any sales would have to be approved by city council. This is, as Ms. Warden very well put in her narrative, that this will allow us some flexibility as a municipality to be able to make this happen faster than if we had to go through all the channels that city government requires. Sitting on Worcester growth, I can assure you that they have a fiduciary duty and always understand they're a creature of council. So, Mr. Myers, I can't tell if you shanked your tee shot because it looks like you are deep into the weeds there.
Yeah, that's my little turtle that's on my pond there behind my house.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the turtle can't vote now.
Okay.
Mrs. DiPaolo, would you please call the roll on the motion to adopt?
Silvestri,
Yes.
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
and Sanders.
Yes.
Can the owl vote, Mike?
Is he wiser than the guy he's sitting behind?
By leaps and bounds. He certainly
Okay.
is. Yes.
All right, ordinance number 2021-17 passes. There has been a request to go into executive session to discuss property for public purpose. So I would entertain a motion and then a second, and then we'll need a roll call vote to go into executive session if that's what council so desires.
So moved.
Motion by, was that Mr. Sanders?
Yes,
Yes.
it was.
Yes. To go in executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Silvestri. Mr. Paulo, would you please call the roll on the motion to go into executive session?
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
and Silvestri.
Yes.
All right, we will be going off the record and moving into executive session. I assume that Mr. Scavelli, I see, is already inviting those that are allowed to move into room number 1. So we'll see you on the flip side when we come out. Thank you.
Brenneman, did you see the semifinal UCLA game? I
Oh,
went to bed before it was over, and I'm so mad that I did so because that was an amazing finish. I heard from my friend Mr. Malta the next morning all about it, but I went to bed and missed that ending.
It was phenomenal, I'll tell you.
Wow.
One in a century movie there on that one.
Yeah.
Okay, before we can go back into the council meeting session, we will have to vote to go out of executive sessions. I'll entertain a
So moved.
motion by Mr. Ansel to leave executive session. Second by Mr. Myers. Mr. Paula, would you please call the roll on the motion to go back into regular session?
Warden,
Yes.
Ansel,
Yes.
Cavan,
Yes.
Bastancik,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Sanders,
Yes.
and Silvestri.
Yes.
Okay, we are back on the record and back in regular session of Worcester City Council, April 5, 2021. We'll move into miscellaneous, and I'm going to just start at the bottom of my screen and start with Mr. Cavan.
Everyone's frozen. Can you hear me?
I can hear
Now
you
we can
Yes.
hear you.
Oh, it just says your internet connection is unstable. Yeah.
It better your internet connection than something else being unstable, you know?
Yeah. No, I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cavan. Mr. Ansel?
Yes, I would like to schedule a finance committee meeting for our next council session commencing at 6:30 PM to review first quarter financials and forecast. Mr. Dordia and the city administration will be coordinating that presentation, so we'll do it an hour in advance.
All right, it'll be so noted. And I know Mr. Paulo's already aware of that, and we'll get the notices out. Mr. Bostancic?
Nothing more at this time.
All right, Mr. Silvestri?
Yes, I want to thank council members this evening. It was a good, productive meeting. I also know it's been a busy time for our administration, our city administration. So I want to thank the mayor and his entire administrative team. I know they've been extremely helpful answering my questions lately, and we have a lot of great things going on here in the city of Worcester. It's fantastic to hear that Gojo is now the largest manufacturer of Purell at the Wooster, Ohio location of anywhere else in the world. So that's great news, and keep up the good work. Thanks.
Mr. Myers?
Oh, thank you, President Biden. I just wanted to note that I noticed in the newspaper the other day that we had several of our Worcester police officers with accommodations. I had forwarded the news article to myself, but in order to read it this evening with their names, and it didn't get to me. Technology, sometimes I struggle. So I just wanted to note that they were accommodations given to our officers, and hats off to our local police force. Second, one of the comments I just want to make is, and I don't know if this is between something we need to discuss with you, Mr. Bidendijk. I think it would be helpful if we had maybe after the mayor or sometime in informal comments, a review of the Let's Chat conversations. I know you've been taking notes, and Mr. Scavelli has also been a part of those discussions, but if council could be made aware of what happened during those, I think we could all then look to the next session. I know mine's not actually till September, but if we could have those kinds of updates during council meeting after the Let's Talk, I think that would be helpful.
Well, have you been getting my emails?
No, I don't believe I have.
Well, there's your problem. I send everyone a compendium of the notes, so I don't know
I've gotten some updates from some of the folks who've attended, Mark Gooch.
Every council member gets sent through their council email a compendium of my notes, so.
All right, well, I'll take a look and make sure I've gotten those. I do think, though, that it might be helpful that they were reviewed at council meeting for the general public.
I'll take it under advisement.
That's
Ms.
all I have
Borden?
this evening. Thank you.
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
And Mr. Sanders, one last time.
I have nothing to add this evening, Mr. President.
All right, and I say Mr. Ansel has moved to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
Dr. Johnny Fever. is
Second,
out.
by Mr. Silvestri and the rest and Moss. So all in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned. Thank you, one and
Night.
all.
We'll see y'all.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a good
Yes.
day.